There hadn't been a lot of motion. It's been narrow focus. The bigger the game, the narrower your focus, and it's been absolute narrow focus on winning our first NCAA tournament game at McNeese State and continuing to change. This is just huge for our school. Our enrollment's up 3%. Our applications are up 10%, and we've gotten freaking $25 million worth of free advertising the last couple weeks. Our stuff's going to go through the roof. It's going to change our area. It changes our 5 parish areas, changes everything. So, that's what our focus has been. And we've broken every record in the book. This was the last one to get. We want to keep this going.
Coach, in case you didn't know, I'm the emotional one on the show. Stephen A., he's a lot of other things, like a contrarian. But these are the moments why I love sports. Coach, what did you think of the upset by McNeese?
A little bit shocked, but not totally shocked. Look, the NCAA tournament's about matchups. It's all about matchups. Can you impose your identity on the game? And that's exactly what McNeese did. Now, look, Clemson was playing without Dylan Hunter, a backup ball handler to Chase Hunter, his brother, who was a starter. So when I look at this, McNeese, what did they do? They disrupted them with their defense, switching, going from man-to-man to zone to man-to-man, switching things, getting underneath people. All right? They got to the offensive glass, 18 offensive rebounds. They used their quickness and athleticism to get to the front of the rim and offensive rebound to basketball. And then finally, I thought that Coach Wade did a great job of creating matchups. Attacking those matchups, getting downhill, one-on-one matchups. And when you win those matchups, you get to the offensive glass. So I was surprised, not totally shocked, because, Stephen A., style makes fights. And the style of McNeese State is hard to prepare for. They imposed their identity on the game. Bad loss for the ACC, but a big-time win for McNeese. And that coach is actually going to the ACC next year as the head coach at NC State.
Absolutely. Well, let me say this, though, Coach, and I get where you're coming from, and, it was a shock to you, but let's understand why it was a shock. Clemson was horrific. They were a disaster. Yes. 5 of 24 shooting from the field in the first half, 1 of 15 from three-point range, 1 of 15, okay? I'm just looking at this right now. Tigers, historically poor performance, going only 13 points in the first half, the lowest in NCAA tournament history since the shot clock's introduction. So we have to understand, as impressive as McNeese may be, there are certain things that it's really about you. No matter how good, no matter how great McNeese may have been, the bottom line is Clemson was historically bad. They seemed ill-prepared. They didn't know what the hell they were doing. This is the first time in Southland Conference's history that they beat an ACC team. They came in there 0-7. So you got to look at it from that standpoint as well. This wasn't supposed to happen. The fact that it happened, if it was some thriller or whatever it is, I understand it's 69-67, close first-round game. But Clemson was so damn bad, so inexplicably bad. That's what you walked away with. You walked away looking at them saying, this is an ACC team? How in God's name could they look this bad? And that's what I walked away from. So give McNeese props. I'm not trying to take anything away from them, but I really, really think the story was how bad Clemson was in that first half, and really stands out because they didn't seem ready to play at all.
Stephen, I agree with you that Clemson was bad, but McNeese State, they got a bunch of dudes. All the guys that play for McNeese State, they're high Division I transfers. Brandon Murray, all right, Georgetown. He played at the very highest level. Copeland, Syracuse. They got dudes. They got long, hard-playing, tough dudes. Now, I agree with you 100%. Clemson was a no-show. They were not the aggressor. They got pushed back. Instead of fighting and drawing a line in the sand, you know what? They wilted. They got beat to every 50-50 ball. They got drilled on the glass, and they didn't compete defensively, keeping the ball in front. I agree with what you said about Clemson, but McNeese State, that's not a Southland team. That's a team made up of high major transfers.
Well,
you transfer up, you transfer down.
Coach, they did look like one in the second half. They got outscored 51-29. What is it, over the final 15-30 of the game? They got outscored by 22 points. So if Clemson had showed up in the first half and showed like they had a damn pulse, they'd be advancing instead of McNeese.
I'm telling you, this McNeese State team, and their next opponent is going to be Purdue.
They
got a little St. Pete in them. They might have a little St. Pete in them. Remember, Kentucky,
I can
Purdue.
believe that.
Yeah. Okay.
Style of play, only one ball handler for Purdue and Braden Smith.
All right.
This could be
We'll keep our eye on them, Coach. But I want to keep it pushing here, guys. Clemson wasn't the only ACC team that was sent home. Louisville also lost, which means we haven't even completed the first round, and already the ACC only has 2 teams left in the tournament. That would be Duke, a 1 seed, and North Carolina, 11. Since the tournament expanded to 64 teams in 1985, the fewest amount of teams the conference has advanced to the second round is 2. Never have they sent 1 or fewer. Okay, Coach, what do the losses from Clemson and Louisville say about the state of the ACC?
Well, look, it's even bigger than just Louisville and Clemson losing. It's the state of the ACC. Think about this. Clemson, they weren't supposed to, Louisville wasn't supposed to be in the NCAA tournament. Pat Kelsey took over a program that was in disarray, and what did he do? He turned the thing around in 1 year. All right, and then North Carolina just barely got in. So if those 2 things don't happen, you're talking about 2 teams from the ACC getting in the NCAA tournament. So here's the bigger problem. One of the college presidents is going to realize that you can change coaches all you want. Your investment equals your expectation. All right, you've got to invest in coaches, you've got to invest in infrastructure, and you've got to invest in NIL. Because if you look at the ACC, excluding the top 2 or 3 teams, there's no investment. You look at the SEC, 14 teams in the NCAA tournament, you see tremendous investment. The way in the business of college basketball, and it is a business, if you don't invest in your program and give them the coaches the resources, you have no shot because you have no resources to go out and secure the players you need to secure to win at the highest level. See what the ACC did in a non-conference? They got drilled by the SEC. Until that decision's made across the board in the ACC, this could potentially be the norm.
Coach, I'm disappointed in your response. There's nothing that you said that's wrong. It's nothing that you said. I'm not challenging the veracity of anything that you said, but I'm incredibly disappointed. You're old school, okay? You were around to see what the ACC was. Yeah. Remember Duke and North Carolina? First of all, thank God for Duke, because Duke hasn't dissipated in any way. They are still the blue bloods, okay? They are still who the hell they are. Duke University, even with Coach Gage gone and Sean there, he's doing a hell of a job. Props to him. Props to their program for recruiting the players that they've recruited. We understand that North Carolina has been up and down. Hubert Davis had better years than he's had this past season, okay? Even though North Carolina is still in the mix. You want to see that rivalry, Duke, North Carolina. You want to see your North Carolina State coming up the rear. You want to see Virginia be relevant. But here's the biggest thing, and this is why I'm disappointed, Coach. We all know that when you think Syracuse, you think Big East. They're in ACC now. Why is Miami in the ACC? Do we really? I love Miami, the city, okay? But the university, I respect it, but I don't want to see them in the ACC. Come on. SMU, I'm just looking at Stanford, really? Out west? Out west in the Bay Area, okay? What that got to do with the ACC? Think about this. It doesn't, you look at them, and there's certainly a money grab. You collaborate, you make sure you bring people into the conference. You're supposed to be elevating it. I want to see Wake Forest. When I think ACC, I'm thinking Wake Forest. I'm thinking NC State. I'm definitely thinking Duke and North Carolina. First and foremost, Virginia. I'm looking at stuff like that. I want to see somebody from damn near the Pacific Northwest, for crying out loud, the Bay Area, and Stanford being in the conference, and then Stanford's in one conference, in the conference, and the same conference that Stanford is in out in the Bay Area. So is SMU, which is in Dallas, Texas, for crying out loud. What the hell is going on? That's what the problem is with the ACC. The relationships, the rivalries, the things that you talked about that had you button run. You could roll up on I-85 or I-95 and run into somebody from another school, and y'all talking smack to one another. It was, it was something that was prideful that you held on to. Same principle with the Big East. Same principle with the Pac-12 and all of that stuff. It's all changed now. And I think the ACC has been contaminated by it all, because I'm looking at half of these teams in this conference you do not care about. In terms of the ACC, you do not care about them being in the ACC, because that's not what personifies the ACC or has personified the ACC all of these years. That's what I wanted to hear you say, Coach, and I'm disappointed I didn't hear that come out your mouth.
I'm going to one-up you, Stephen A., because I got a solution. I've said this for 2 years. Okay. I know Coach K has said it recently. The Big East and the ACC need to find some type of collaboration. Football needs to separate. Football is absolutely separate. They play one game a week, all right? But non-revenue sports and basketball, the ACC and the Big East need to become one. A absolutely monster basketball conference. Bring back real rivalries. You have to bring back these rivalries. You think about UConn and Duke, all right? Think about St. John's and North Carolina in Madison Square Garden. We've got to create events. Right now, you've got an ACC that's disjointed. You hit it right on the money. We need to create events because everyone says, well, the season doesn't start until the NCAA tournament. The season doesn't start until after the college football playoffs. So the season doesn't start until the Super Bowl is over. We need to create events, and someone needs to be bold. And bold means basically collaborating between the ACC and the Big East, create a super basketball conference, create the rivalries and the events that we need. Because right now, on its own, the ACC,
I'm fine with that, Coach. If you talk about, I'm fine with that, Coach. If you talk about getting rid of some of these teams from out west and in Texas, if you're talking about that, I'm all for it. The fact of the matter is, as long as you got those cats in the ACC, it's not the same. I think when you talk about the big collaboration that you're talking about, there's a lot of people in the Northeast especially who would fully embrace that because it makes sense. When you see one team from Dallas, another team from Palo Alto, another team from, come on. That's not the ACC. That's not what gravitates you to the Atlantic Coast Conference. I'm sorry. I'm not feeling it at all.
I agree with you.
Any more than I'm feeling Creighton and all of these guys in the Big East.
All right.
Oh, I like Creighton because they have a commonality with most of the Big East schools.
I don't like Creighton.
Maybe that's a bad example.
Yeah, Molly doesn't like Creighton because they put Clark right in the middle of the lane, and he plays a one-man zone, and they never foul.
Speaking of why I don't like Creighton, Danny Hurley has some comments about the conferences merging. We'll get into that in the second hour, guys. I got a quick take for you, though. John Calipari's